Yo, a well-known company that makes a massive $409 billion worth of revenue every quarter just adopted Bitcoin. What happens if just 1% of that company's $409 billion quarterly volume goes into Bitcoin? We'll find out today. To give you perspective, Saylor's MicroStrategy has a yearly revenue of $450 million. The company we're going to expose today brings 1,000x more revenue in just one quarter what it takes MicroStrategy 1 year to achieve. The price is up by over 10% since Saylor announced last week that he plans to buy an additional $2 billion worth of Bitcoin. What happens if this company follows suit? Who is this company? Stay tuned to find out. Before we jump into it, I do want to bring up, of course, my legendary co-host Optimus Fields and our guests for today, Kemal and James from the Adopting Bitcoin conference, and of course, James is from BTC Farmers Market. So let's jump straight into it, gentlemen, shall we? What am I talking about? Well, it's a behemoth. You guys know the name, of course. I'm talking about PayPal. PayPal to allow cryptocurrency buying, holding, and selling for US merchants. The reason that this is such a big deal is at the end of Q4 2023, PayPal had 426 million active accounts, and users who made transactions in 2023, PayPal had 431 million users, which includes users who'd made at least one transaction that year. So again, these aren't inactive users, these are active users that are actively using the platform. And again, PayPal just added massive functionality in terms of Bitcoin. This is breaking news. This happened yesterday after the live show. Let's get into some of the details, shall we? PayPal Holdings announced on Wednesday it is enabling US merchants to buy, hold, and sell cryptocurrency from their business accounts. Cryptocurrency has moved from being a nascent asset towards greater market acceptance after Bitcoin ETFs were approved for listings by the US SEC earlier this year. Quote, business owners have increasingly expressed a desire for the same cryptocurrency capabilities available to consumers. It goes on to say PayPal joined the cryptocurrency market in 2020, allowing customers to buy, sell, and hold Bitcoin and other virtual coins using the digital payments company's online wallets. The company became the first major financial technology firm to embrace digital currencies for payments and transfers when it launched its dollar-backed stablecoin in August 2023. And it goes on to explain stablecoins. Anyways, it goes on to say PayPal is also enabling US merchants to transfer cryptocurrency on-chain externally to third-party eligible wallets. However, the services would not be available for business accounts in New York State. New York State, have fun staying poor. That is the Bitcoin law that they have over there. It's hurting consumers tremendously. But it looks like for the rest of the United States, this capability will be allowed. And of course, the company shares have gained nearly 26% this year in market value. So let's talk about this really bullish news. One of the things that I want to talk about, ladies and gentlemen, is again, merchant adoption, right? The fact that it's now that businesses have the capability, right, to buy, sell, hold, and now send Bitcoin off the platform is extremely bullish, because we all know what happens when individuals adopt a Bitcoin standard. We now know what what happens to public companies when they adopt a Bitcoin strategy. Michael Saylor's companies outperforming every other company in the S&P 500. And we now know what happens to nation states when they adopt a Bitcoin strategy. Of course, I'm talking about El Salvador and the Himalayan kingdom of Bhutan, right? Good things happen. Happiness happens. Hope happens. So I just got to say, man, this is extremely bullish, because this tells me that at least a small percentage of those companies that use PayPal services are now going to have Bitcoin on their company treasury. Why would PayPal introduce this if the market wasn't asking for it? These are merchants, by the way. These aren't individuals. These are merchants. These are people that are using PayPal as a point of sale that are basically saying, hey, why don't we have the capability as a company to buy, sell, hold, and send Bitcoin? What's going on there? So this is extremely bullish from an adoption standpoint. PayPal is a massive company. I think it's just a matter of time time before one of the big 7 tech companies follows in the footsteps of MicroStrategy, follows in the footsteps of Tesla. And again, shout out to PayPal for giving this functionality. And one of the things that I didn't like about PayPal when they initially announced this is that they didn't allow withdrawals. So they allowed the purchase of Bitcoin on their platforms, but they didn't allow people to take self-custody. Of course, because of market pressures, because of their competitors, they eventually had to bend the knee, and now they allow people to withdraw off the platform and to send to self-custodial wallets. And it looks like they're doing the same thing with merchants as well. And again, I'm very, very bullish as a Bitcoin Bitcoin focused company with part of our treasury in Bitcoin. It makes me very, very happy that potentially non-Bitcoin companies could follow in the footsteps and potentially put 1, 2, 10% of their treasury reserves in Bitcoin. And just by putting those small allocations, they'll be able to beat the loss of purchasing power incurred by them due to inflation. Anyways, I'm going to pass it on to our guest today to get his thoughts on the PayPal news. Kemal from Adopting Bitcoin. What are your thoughts? Welcome on the show.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Yeah, good news. I've been using PayPal like 15 years ago or so when I was living in Germany. It was very practical, had good integration on the net if you wanted to, send around money between friends and stuff. Nowadays here in Turkey, I can't use it. It's banned for a couple of years now. So it's not even available to Turkish citizens. And yeah, I mean, of course, it's great that they do this, but I would actually say they have to. Like, there is nothing else they can do, right? Like, they have to skate where the puck is going and not where it is. They have to grow. They have to adjust to the changing ecosystem, and changing it is, right? For example, here we also see other financial institutions in Turkey, always high up on the list of places with high crypto adoption or Bitcoin adoption. Here now all the banks are trying to get into this business of buy and sell Bitcoin and hold it on behalf of their customers. Why? Because it is one of the most in demand businesses out there in this area in the financial markets. It's new, and people and companies can grow into this market and add new revenue streams, and that's what all they want to do. So they've not become like big Bitcoin believers or something. They just want to make money, and that's fine. They see that there's an opportunity. They see where the market is going, that the demand is growing, that users are asking for it, that their competitors are offering it, and now it's just it's called Zugzwang. They have to do it too, right? If they don't, they will be annihilated like dinosaurs.
Yep, they'll get left behind. Absolutely. Aren't market incentives beautiful? You go from Larry Fink saying that Bitcoin, quote, is an index of money laundering. In 5 years, he bends the knee and he's, touting Satoshi's gospel, and PayPal's the same. You could make an argument that Bitcoin is a competitor to PayPal, but they have no choice but to include it in their business strategy, or else they get left behind. They risk themselves getting left behind. So that's a really good point, Kemal. I want to pass it on to James. James, welcome to the show. By the way, for anyone who doesn't know, James is also part of Adopting Bitcoin, but also the famous BTC farmers market in El Salvador. James, we're very happy to have you join us. How you doing?
Doing great, mate. Thank you for having me on the show. And yeah, super interesting news, Ari. PayPal. I echo a lot of Kemal's sentiments there. I think one of the interesting things that could potentially happen, if they do just allocate 1% of their treasury to Bitcoin on a long-term time play, that 1% becomes 10% of their treasury, and so on and so forth for the further we go down the line. So it'll just be interesting to see how that actually plays out in the future.
100%. I 100% agree with that. Right. And I think that starts with a lot of people, right? You allocate that 1% of your treasury to Bitcoin, and then that 1% starts outperforming the rest. And then what do? You're like, okay, maybe we should put 2. And then you're like, maybe we should put 3. And then you become a maxim. And maybe it's like, we should put 100. Hey, we should mortgage the house and put 125%. That is not financial advice. That's a half joke. Opti, what's your take on all this, brother?
Well, first of all, my thought is obviously I think this is a good development, considering that one of the biggest floodlines in regards to Bitcoin is that, hey, I thought this is money and no one accepts it. And now basically every PayPal merchant can now accept Bitcoin if their customers so choose to pay in Bitcoin. So that's obviously a very good development. And now I think we'll start to see other companies do something very similar, where hopefully soon enough you walk into every store possible, and with all of their point of sale systems, you can easily pay in Bitcoin. I think it might be a slow development. I was actually thinking about this the other day, just like how long it took for us to go from just pure swiping credit cards to now like pay to tap everywhere you go, and it's still rolling out. And so I really was thinking about this week about how long is it going to take until we get every point of sale terminal out there just accepting Bitcoin natively, which would obviously be good. And I mean, if you have an internet or e-commerce site, I think especially if it's going to be as easy as you're already connected to PayPal and you kind of just like, toggle on this new feature, it's like a no-brainer to add Bitcoin into your e-commerce site if it's this simple, if you're already using PayPal. So love to see that not only is it merchants wanting to accept Bitcoin and of course customers wanting to pay in Bitcoin, but that PayPal has bent the knee to Bitcoin. And I think we're going to see other companies do this as well. Though there was a little bit of weird wording in that, Nico, that is a little iffy as far as I'm concerned. It said eligible third-party crypto wallets, which I don't know what that means. I think they're only allowing certain wallets to transfer out into, which is obviously, I would say, a bad feature. But I think as the market starts to evolve and people start to kind of educate themselves on Bitcoin and not leave their Bitcoin on PayPal, they'll probably bend the knee on that as well. That's like the only caveat to that news that I found kind of interesting, that literal word of eligible crypto wallets. It's like, as long as they're using the protocol, it's an eligible wallet. Like, what does that even mean?
I think, like I said, I think it's like I've been saying these last couple months. I think that they're trying to put the old system on top of the new system, and they're basically they're trying to convince the public that, some self-custody, like, you hear this in their language, right? When they phrase stuff like, this is a self-custodial wallet, like the way that that's phrased is like as if it's the abnormal, as if it's not the norm, right? In the Satoshi white paper, there's no such thing as a self-custodial wallet, right? That's something that the government needs to create out of thin air in order to justify certain laws. So I think market forces are going to take care of this, just like they took care of Robinhood. Robinhood initially didn't offer self-custody, and then look, Lightning Goats is bullish. It's about freaking time PayPal adds merchants. So Robinhood didn't allow self-custody initially, neither did PayPal. And then when they were getting their ass handed to them by Cash App, which of course is being led by Jack Dorsey, who's a huge fan of Bitcoin, they had to pivot, or they were going to be like dinosaurs, like Kemal was saying earlier on in the show. Anyways, guys, stay tuned because it's going to be a loaded show today. We have more information. We have Gary Gensler getting owned once again on Squawk Box on CNBC, and he's once again reiterating that Bitcoin is not a security. I mean, we all know this, but he surely is treating it as if it was a security. He surely is saying one thing and then treating the industry like, very badly. And then in other news as well, Kamala Harris finally has mentioned it's not crypto, it's not Bitcoin, but she's mentioned the word blockchain. Now, to me, the reason that I don't find that so optimistic is you could put in a CBDC, and a CBDC could technically be a blockchain. So, but it is a step in the right direction, I would say. Anyways, guys, stay tuned because we still got a lot to cover. Let's get into the show. Here we go. But before we jump in, let me give a shout out to our lead sponsor. And of course, I'm talking about Bitcoin Well. Bitcoin Well is the best place to build your automatic self-custody Bitcoin stack. Buy real Bitcoin. Enable your independence with the fastest and safest way to buy Bitcoin in Canada and the USA. To get started, all you got to do is you put in your email address, takes about 2 to 5 minutes to get verified, and boom, you're ready to buy automatic self-custody Bitcoin. What does automatic self-custody mean? It means that you can't even leave your Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well. As soon as that's clear, it goes straight to your self-custody Bitcoin wallet address, which perfectly aligns with the Simply Bitcoin ethos of the separation of money and state. Plus, when you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, you earn Bitcoin Well points, and you could use those points towards the Bitcoin Wishing Well contest for an opportunity to win up to 1 million Satoshis. We'll do one for you guys real quick right now. Toss a coin into the Wishing Well. First person to scan the QR code with their Lightning wallets wins 500 sats. If you use promo code SIMPLYBTC, again, Simply BTC, to sign up to bitcoinwell.com today, you get 3 tosses into the Bitcoin Wishing Well absolutely free. All right, everybody, let's get to the numbers. Lots to talk about. All right, everybody, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Stamp Seed. Usually when you buy yourself a hardware wallet, it comes with a piece of paper, and that paper is labeled 1 through 12 or 1 through 24, and you're meant to write down your seed words on that piece of paper. Problem is that paper is prone to water damage, fire damage, your dog could eat it. You definitely don't want to store your generational wealth on a piece of paper. That's why you have to store it properly on a stamp seed. A stamp seed is a titanium seed phrase storage kit. It comes with the hammer, it comes with the letter stamping tools, it comes with the anvil, it comes with everything you need to literally, proof of work, stamp your seed letter by letter into a plate of titanium at the privacy of your own home. Has everything. Has the plate, which is prone to fire, which is you could literally put a blowtorch to it and it's not going to do anything to it. You could put it in salt water and it's going to survive. Your dog's probably not going to want to eat a plate of titanium. This is the proper way to store your generational wealth so that you maintain the relationship with your grandchildren. Get yourself a stamp seed kit today. Use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the website. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is $65,440. Sats per dollar, 1,528. Block height, 862,967. Realized monetary inflation, 1.34%. Market capitalization, 1.29 trillion. Bitcoin versus gold market cap, 7.01%. Money supply, 19,759,055 BTC, or roughly 94% of Bitcoin has been issued. Anyways, here's a clip of Gary Gensler on Squawk yesterday. I want to know what you guys think. Are you guys fans of Gary Gensler? Opti, let's set up the poll on YouTube so we can ask the crowd. Let's check it out. Let's check out this clip.
But there's some argument to be made that you want this, that actually it would be better if all of this business was happening in the U.S. You talk about an SBF. Obviously, that was taking place in the Bahamas. And, you know, a lot of people were trying to do things in other places. If there was a real regime here that everybody could trust and we had established rules and there weren't these questions about whether you were going to go over the line or you're behind the line, where the line was, would that be better?
I think that we do have those rules.
So you think those lines exist? Then why do people in the industry say that they don't know what the rules are?
Look, not liking the rules is not the same as that there aren't rules. And I think there's a lot that have profited off of the public's interest in this field, but profited without the proper disclosures. And inherently, there's business models that have a lot of conflicts. And we've seen the results of that time in and time again. Outside of crypto and inside of crypto, we see what happens when there's so inherent conflict. So we've got 90 years of experience with this, Andrew. It works reasonably well. We've got the deepest, most liquid capital markets. We're trying to make them more efficient. What we're doing in the equity markets, what we're doing in the treasury markets.
To top tier crypto. That's my take.
What's that?
I think you're warming up to top tier crypto. I don't think you think it's a monolith. I think you think there might be some actual usage or benefit to top tier crypto.
Look,
Would you say that recently you're evolving to where? Go ahead.
Joe, where are you on what's called altcoins? There's 15 or 20,000.
That's what I
Where
know.
are you, Joe?
But you, when you came in, you said, yeah, you know, that I probably only own Bitcoin, and you act like that's okay for me because I don't own all the garbage. I think you were thinking. So I just get the feel.
Garbage was your word.
I know, but are you
It was
warming
not
up
that
to
kind of a word.
Huh?
It was not that kind of a word. That you,
Actually,
that's right.
Joe, for the public, used a stronger word than garbage.
I did, but are you warming up to? Do you see that it's probably here to stay and something that could be useful?
This is something I said to students 4 and 5 years ago.
I know, but you didn't say it to once you were the SEC chairman.
No. That this field will not long persist without investor protection or consumer protection.
But if it gets that, can it persist?
Number two, many of these projects, without prejudging anyone, are tapping into the public's interest to raise money. Raise money. That's the classic securities sort of protections that you put in place. You can decide to go long or short these projects, but you need the disclosures. And as it relates to Bitcoin, my predecessor and I have said that's not a security. You now have a way that you can actually express that view, buy into that through exchange-traded products, traded on NASDAQ, traded on New York Stock Exchange and the like.
Okay, that's a yes then.
Where do you think Bitcoin is going to be in our society 20 years from now? If you were to sort of,
I don't really know.
You have any idea?
I don't know. I mean, there's 7 billion people around the globe. I'm not going to make a prediction as to any one project, but what I would say is the field is going to have a challenge building trust, and it already has a challenge building trust when there's so many fraudsters, scammers, grifters in the field, and there are.
But what happened?
So again, like I think that the SEC is sorry, Opti. I know I read your mind, but I think that the SEC has been used for political purposes. I think when they bring up things like trust, when they bring up things like consumer protection, I think that is a veiled veneer to justify a lot of their actions that have been quite hostile towards the industry. The fact is that they weren't able to stop SBF. The fact is that the Winklevi actually introduced a Bitcoin ETF back in 2013. It took them like almost a decade to finally accept that ETF. And like, imagine how many people would have potentially benefited from Bitcoin, getting exposure to Bitcoin back in 2013 than having to wait almost a decade later. So I think they're picking and choosing. For example, when BNY Mellon, the first bank that apparently is going to be allowed to custody Bitcoin, they gave them an exemption from the SAB 121 regulation. Like, if a law is a law, right? A law is meant to be all encompassing. Why is an unelected bureaucracy getting to choose which market participants are exempt from specific laws? Why are they going after Bitcoin/crypto friendly banks? Doesn't make sense. Why have Lightning wallets fled the United States en masse like Wallet of Satoshi and Phoenix Wallet? That is a failure of an institution. I see the SEC as a highly politicized organization. We played you guys a clip yesterday where the SEC was caught red-handed communicating via back channels with Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren was actually feeding Gary Gensler the questions that she was going to ask during a public banking Senate committee. What was the point of that committee if Gary Gensler was fed the questions before? That's politics. Like the whole point of that is a charade. It's politics. It's to make a show that Gary Gensler is being held accountable, that there is oversight. But in reality, you know, it took a Freedom of Information Act to uncover that they were colluding behind the scenes. So I think the SEC is a highly political organization. I don't believe them at this point, and I'm going to keep going back to 2008 and 2009. The Tornado Cash developers, that guy got arrested. That set the precedent. That led to the Samurai guys getting arrested. No significant banker went to jail for what happened in 2008. And we uncovered yesterday that the Wagner group, which is the mercenary group that the Russians used to invade Ukraine, was actually using HSBC and JP Morgan. And the Financial Times was using words like they unwillingly, facilitated those transactions. Why can't the Samurai guys use the same wording? Why is it different rules for different places? Why do the bankers get different rules than our industry? That's not fair, is it? So yeah, I think the SEC is being used by elements of the US government for political means. I think it's a highly politicized organization. I don't think it's fulfilling its job of consumer protection. The moment that they released the ETF, they backtracked it. And it made the price of Bitcoin literally like it was like two God candles of 10K up and 10K down, liquidating tons of people in the process. They literally manipulated the market. Their whole point, the reason as to why they exist is to stop market manipulation in the first place. And it's something that they did themselves. But of course, because they're the regulatory agency, where's the accountability there? So I think it's time to fire Gary Gensler. I think it's time to move on. And I think it's time for this unholy crusade against the Bitcoin industry in the United States to end. That's my opinion on it. Anyways, I'm going to pass it on to Kemal. Kemal, I mean, you and James are you guys are like 10 steps ahead of us at Simply Bitcoin, because me and Opti, first generation Americans, we still believe in the United States. You guys are just like, look, I'm in freedom country. I'm in El Salvador. I don't have to deal with any of this bullshit. So anyways, I want to get your guys' thoughts on this. How does it feel looking from freedom country and seeing what's happening on in clown world? What's your perspective?
I'm an outsider to the US politics scene. I'm obviously watching and following it, what's going on. It seems like there is a lot of political favors being exchanged for money by lobby organizations. And if you have a big lobby and you have a lot of money, then your interests may prevail, and you may not be prosecuted, or a senator might not instigate a bank run against your bank, or lots of different things, right? This is what it looks like to me as an outside observer, like compared to European countries. These lobbies and political donations play like a much bigger role in the United States than in any other democracy I've studied. I don't know. It's an interesting experiment to do things like that, and it certainly has interesting outcomes. I have to disagree maybe a little bit, or I'm a little bit confused about why Gensler is getting so much hate. Because as far as I can tell, as a Bitcoiner who's not necessarily interested in altcoins and crypto industry and stuff, like he hasn't been too bad. Maybe like you said, the SBF thing and the FTX thing, like how could that whole scandal happen under his watch? Like that should be investigated for sure. Seems like they were in on it to me. But maybe the other thing that just recently happened earlier this year is with the ETFs, right? So I think it's a good thing that they approved the ETFs. You may say, hey, you're like 11 years too late what the dealio. We could have had price exposure to Bitcoin for over a decade. It would have been legitimized earlier, but they didn't want to legitimize Bitcoin because ETFs bring legitimization. And so it's a good thing that they brought the ETFs. However, they didn't bring in-kind creation, right? Which is, it's only cash creates, which is like a big caveat to the whole thing. It comes with its own set of problems, raises concerns about paper Bitcoin. And yeah, so those are, I think, the two biggest issues that I have. You have to keep in mind, like, if you wish somebody out of office, there's somebody else going to follow him, and we have no idea how they're going to be. So it's oftentimes like you wish back, oh my God, you remember the good old times when we had Gary Gensler? He was a bald head, but he was actually not so bad. I wish we had him back. Like, it could happen. So it's
absolutely
you should be cautious.
That's a really good point by Kemal. I'm going to pass it on to James. James, it looks like you're in freedom country right now. You guys don't have to deal with any of this clown world madness that's happening in fiat land.
Not really, mate. It's relatively chilled down here. We're just building, and yeah, doesn't seem like it's anywhere near as. Seems exhausting up there in the U.S. I mean, I still love the U.S. I still love Americans, but I feel bad for you guys, all the stuff that you're having to deal with. And I still have hope for the U.S. I still think that it's an unwinding empire, but at the same time, I think you guys still have the Second Amendment. I think the American people are amazing. I just hope you can get these parasitic class type people off your back, because you guys would just be a powerhouse if they got out of the way.
Absolutely. And I think Bitcoin's going to definitely do that over the long term. And that's dropping wisdom from James. Opti, real quick, what's your take on this before we move on to the news?
Of course. Well, first of all, to give some context, guys, if you're new to the show, I've been obviously very critical of Gary Gensler for a long time. I've been making insinuations about who he actually works for and all that good stuff. But I kind of agree with Kemal here. Like, if you look at that clip, I trolled in the chat when you said to start the poll of like, do you like Gary Gensler? And I put yes, he's an undercover Bitcoin maxi, or no, you should fire him. Because if you just base it off that clip, yeah, that's not gonna happen. If you just kind of base it off that clip, I agree with a lot of the things he said in that particular clip that we saw. Like, crypto as an industry is filled with a lot of scams. There is a lot of people that are creating coins and just trying to raise money, and they're offering, they're offering securities out there, and they're like, no, the rules don't apply to us. And it's like, no, bro, you're literally offering securities, and that's what's happening. It's the Howey test. Like, we know the Howey test. We've had the Howey test for a long time, and it's pretty clear test. And so I find it obviously interesting. Like, I have been saying for a while that I do think Gary Gensler is working for the big banks. Yesterday, or in the last week on Friday as well, we got the smoking gun that Elizabeth Warren and Operation Choke Point 2.0 are a real thing. They've been actively fighting the Bitcoin industry. We know Gary Gensler and Elizabeth Warren were in cahoots about the banking trial that Nico brought up. And so there is a lot of things to be critical about Gary Gensler in the first place. But kind of like Kemal was saying, we don't know who's going to be next. And at least we know that he does, on a very, I would say, technical level, understand Bitcoin and the crypto industry. Yes, publicly, in regards to his role at the SEC, he's not a full-blown Bitcoin maxi. But even there in that clip, he's like, yeah, we made the rules pretty clear, and we like Bitcoin. It's not a security. And this is why we offered the ETF product. And I agree. The crypto industry at large, the altcoin space, is full of a lot of scammers. It is full with a lot of rug pulls. And so, again, on that clip in itself, I kind of agree with him, though there is an interesting line of reasoning. And if you read between the lines there, of him kind of saying like, yeah, we allowed the Bitcoin ETF products and just, go to the New York exchange and trade it in these regulated entities. And it really just makes me think like he doesn't want us holding Bitcoin, at least in his public role, doesn't want us holding Bitcoin in self-custody, which is more signal than ever that we should probably be holding Bitcoin in self-custody. But I kind of agree. Like hey, you guys can call me a statist today or whatever. You guys can throw tomatoes at me all you want, but it sounds like Gary Gensler is an undercover max as far as I'm concerned, and he only likes Bitcoin. I likes Bitcoin, and I don't care about all the other shit coins. And I agree with that. So yes, there's a lot of things to be critical about Gary Gensler, but based on that clip, I'd say he's a Bitcoiner, and all you shitcoiners are going to get wrecked.
Breaking news: Opti is no longer into Christine Lagarde. He is trying to.
Hey. It's a family-friendly show, Nico.
I mean, bro, you're Mr. Politician, central banker Casanova, bro.
I'm a Cantillon insider. No, I'm not. I don't.
All right, everybody, let's get to the news. We have lots to talk about. Let's check it out. Here we go. Stay tuned. We're going to talk about Kamala Harris potentially changing tune on the industry, a historic meeting between Elon Musk and Nayib Bukele, and of course, the old age meme, the meme that we've been saying. If you guys believe in the theory from the fourth turning, hard times create strong men create good times create weak men create hard times. So I think it was a very historic meeting. I think we are going through very historic times. We're living through historic times. So we're going to explore those topics further. Guys, stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Very special shout out to our sponsor, Compass Mining. They make Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone, from beginners to experienced investors. Their turnkey miners gets you online and hashing within 48 hours, making it easier than ever to start your mining journey. Plus, with their active marketplace, you can resell your miner at any time, adding flexibility and value to your investment. Visit their website to access a wealth of resources, learning everything you need to know about Bitcoin mining. Take your first step into the world of Bitcoin mining with confidence. Discover more at compassmining.io. Again, compassmining.io, and see how Compass Mining can power your success. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Foundation. It's self-custody done right. They built a premium grade hardware wallet called Passport right here in the US, and it integrates seamlessly with their free app called Envoy. Passport is fully open source and verifiable. It's the most intuitive Bitcoin wallet design with a UX reminiscent of a classic feature phone, so you'll know how to navigate it and use it the moment you pick it up. It's also air-gapped, meaning Bitcoin stays offline, never touching an internet connection. It's Bitcoin only, open source verifiable, air-gap security model, gorgeous design craft, premium grade materials. Get your Bitcoin off exchanges and into your own hands in just a few minutes with Passport at foundation.xyz/simply. Get peace of mind for your piece of Bitcoin.
All right, everybody, we are back. Before we jump into it, of course, we have our model for today, Optimus Fields, and he's going to model the Passport by Foundation devices. If you use promo code SIMPLY, you get a discount. It does not come with Opti, but you will get a discount to get yourself a hardware wallet. Remember, guys, not your keys, not your cheese. You want to take self-custody of your Bitcoin, and you need a Bitcoin-only hardware wallet to do that. And of course, we recommend our sponsor, Passport by Foundation devices. Incredibly easy to use, very intuitive. This is a wallet that you want to gift your friends and family. Like if you have, if they don't take self-custody, leave their Bitcoin on the exchanges, get them a Passport. It's so easy to set up. They have a concierge service on their website. So they'll literally, like, you could add it to the cart, you buy yourself a Passport, and you can put the concierge service on there, and they'll literally have a Bitcoin expert walking you through how to set up self-custody. So it's not intimidating whatsoever. Head over to the Foundation Devices website, and again, use promo code SIMPLY to get yourself a small discount. Anyway, so the news for today: Kamala Harris courts AI and crypto industries during fundraising event in New York. This is a complete change of tune, ladies and gentlemen. Do I think that this is a coincidence that this is coming after Donald Trump makes a historic appearance at Pub Key in New York, buying burgers for the entire bar? No, I don't think that's a coincidence. Do I think it's a coincidence that this is happening during an election year when a major part of the Democratic constituents are Bitcoin owners? No, I don't think that that's a coincidence. However, big however, and I already see someone saying crypto meh in the chat. She does not say crypto. She does not say digital assets. She says blockchain. Here's the clip. Let's check it out, and then we will talk about it.
So I will recommit the nation to global leadership in the sectors that will define the next century. We will invest in biomanufacturing and aerospace, remain dominant in AI and quantum computing, blockchain and other emerging technologies. So I will
That's not good enough for me, bro. That's not good enough for me. The orange man is at least saying that he's going to protect self-custody, protect the right to mine, and he's saying at least have fun with your Bitcoins. It doesn't sound as good. I mean, at least she could have said, like, have fun with your blockchains, but, you know, she's just throwing in blockchain with AI and quantum computing. Like, I feel like it's a bunch of buzzwords that sound good, but I want promises. I want promises. When I get promises, I will wear a Kamala shirt. I will wear a Kamala shirt on the show. So Kamala Harris, come out and say, you know, I'll protect the right to self-custody. I'll protect the right to mine. And Nico promises that he will wear a Kamala shirt. Until then, MAGA 2024, baby. All right, everybody. So moving on to the next piece of news.
Wait. Can I jump in here real quick?
Yeah, of course.
You know, Nico said he'd wear a Kamala shirt if she said the B word. She said the wrong B word. This whole, like, I'm going to protect blockchain. It's just like, man, what year are we in again? Like, I know she's a politician. She probably is just reading a script, but I think
she absolutely was reading a script.
Of course, but like saying blockchain is even worse than saying crypto as far as I'm concerned. It's like, what are we talking about here? No one really needs a blockchain. Like, we want
but
Bitcoin.
A central bank might potentially need a block. I mean, central bank digital currency might need a blockchain.
They already got a database. Why do they need a slow, clunky database, man? What's going on here? It's about Bitcoin. Anyways, keep it going. Sorry, I just like blockchain.
I gotta get on that James tip where he's straight chilling in El Salvador and freedom country. He's like, this is fucking crazy shit. It must look like a reality TV show, American politics, from your perspective. Anyways, moving on, a historic meeting between the leader of the free world, Nayib Bukele, and of course, legendary entrepreneur and one of the richest men in the world, if not the richest man in the world, Elon Musk. And he said, to quote him, just had an excellent conversation with President Bukele. We talked about the nature of reality, future of humanity, and how technology like AI and robotics will affect the world. El Salvador has an amazing leader. And Elon went on to say he took a speech of Nayib Bukele from the United Nations. I'm going to try to live translate this for you guys because it is in Spanish. And unfortunately, most of our viewers are Americans, Canadians, and people in the UK. So I'm assuming that you guys don't understand Spanish. So I'm going to live translate some of this. Anyways, here is a clip, a 1 minute, 49 second clip of a legendary speech of Nayib Bukele at the United Nations. When I heard this, it gave me goosebumps. As Salvadorians, we recognize these symptoms of decadence when we see them, because we have been through them all. We've lived through the stages of our nation's downfall, one by one, and we're seeing those same stages once again, but this time on a global scale. We cannot and do not wish to tell other countries what to do. Each country must make its own decisions and do what is best for its people. We can only offer a word of caution from a friend who has been through a dark time and has fought the battle of his life to get out of it. We cannot change the course of the world. El Salvador is too small of a country. We are, in fact, the smallest country in the entire American continent. This is much bigger than us, and in fact, it is bigger than any nation. We cannot prevent the dark times that are coming. But what we can do is become a small shelter from the coming storm. Maintain hope in El Salvador. We do not imprison our opposition. We do not censor opinions. We do not confiscate property from those who think differently. We do not arrest people for expressing their ideas. In El Salvador, your freedom of expression, as well as your private property, will always be protected. In El Salvador, we prioritize the safety of our honest citizens over the comfort of criminals. Some say that we have imprisoned thousands, but the reality is that we have freed millions. Now is the good guys who live free without fear, with their freedoms and human rights fully respected. I mean, that speech just gives me absolute goosebumps. Like, some say that we have imprisoned thousands, but in reality, we have freed millions. And this leads me to this very famous meme that has made the rounds on Bitcoin Twitter. Hard times create strong men create good times create weak men create hard times. I would say we are transitioning from weak men create hard times to hard times create strong men. And I think with Nayib Bukele's leadership and him doing the courageous thing, the strong thing, because that's the fear, that's the narrative that you'd like to hear from people. The narrative is basically like, how could you imprison 1% of your population? How could you imprison thousands of these people? And he addressed it perfectly. Those thousands of people, those criminals, were literally terrorizing the lives of millions of people who were honest and good citizens. The context matters. And in this time of despair, in this time of darkness, we need courage. We need strong men to stand up and do the right thing. And then that leads me to the next question, which is a question that I've been currently asking myself during my recent kind of Bitcoin rabbit hole journey, which is, the initial question is, what is money? But that has led me to realize that the question isn't what is money. The question is, what is government? And I think Nayib Bukele perfectly addressed it during that speech that he made. The role of government is protect private property, protect those honest and law-abiding citizens from the non-law abiding citizens. That is the whole point of government. And now it's been kind of Frankensteined into this government should do basically everything and anything but protect its people. How is sending hundreds of billions of dollars to fund a foreign war in Ukraine helping me here in the US? You know, how is what is happening in the border helping me as a tax-paying citizen here in the US? How is that helping me? So I think the money printer, I think fiat, has grown government to such an extent that now all of a sudden it's starting to eat itself. And this is where we are in the movie. And I think El Salvador has a history due to its civil war that they've been through those times of decadence. They've been through those times of instability. So therefore, they know the lessons of the past. And when you know the lessons of the past, you know what not to do in order for you to not repeat the same mistakes. Something similar happened in Argentina. The people of Argentina were pushed to such an extreme that for the first time in global history, a libertarian Austrian economist president was voted into office. And because of his policies, Argentina went out, You know, they've stabilized their currency. They've lowered the cost of housing. And I think the world is going through this great awakening process. I think some people see it before others. I originally come from Venezuela. I've seen my country completely destroyed by 20 years of decadence and collectivism ideologies and policies. And I'm seeing that train move full steam ahead in Western so-called democracies. And you're starting to see this with the rise of censorship, the rise of confiscation of private property due to your political beliefs. And I think it would be wise for the world to heed what Nayib Bukele is saying in his United Nations speech. And I think that's exactly why Elon Musk is retweeting something like that. Anyways, that's my take on all this. Again, I think Nayib Bukele is really showing the rest of the world what it takes. I think he's a great leader, and really excited to see the future of El Salvador, you know, with him behind the helm. Anyways, I'm going to pass it on to James, because James, you're on the floor over there. What are you seeing that we're not seeing? What are you seeing in El Salvador? One of the things that I experienced when I went to the halving party is, you know, I'm bilingual. I speak Spanish, and I took it upon myself to talk to as many locals as possible. And I asked them two questions. What do you think about Nayib Bukele? Because I didn't want to trust what other people were telling me. And what do you think about Bitcoin? I don't think I got one answer from someone that said that they disliked Nayib Bukele. That's the number one thing. Number two is the Bitcoin thing was like 50-50. Like most people are like, yeah, I like dollars and I'm using dollars. The Chivo wallet, it's cool, but you know, it's kind of still experimental. But those are the two questions that I asked when I was in El Salvador. And again, I don't think it's a coincidence that the first country that made Bitcoin legal tender, therefore making the base layer of society aligned with the rest of the populace, happens to have the most popular president in the Americas. I don't think that's a coincidence. So James, I'm going to pass it on to you. You're on the ground. What do you think of all this?
Well, yeah, I would say you're totally correct. He has an incredibly high approval rating here. It's complicated. The number one thing, you can't do anything without security, right? You can't build anything without security. And that's what he's provided. He's a controversial figure, obviously, because he's taken some pretty extreme measures in how he's achieved that. But the reality is that the country was languishing, essentially, with the violence. Like I was here before the emergency state took effect, and it was really bad. You know, I remember when it happened. You know, there was I think it was 65 people killed in a day because a truce fell apart, and they were just going around just shooting people on the street. They were just driving around, drive-bys, anyone and everyone, and that's what began like the emergency measures. Since then, yeah, it's an incredibly safe place, and that has really allowed both foreigners and locals to actually start building something more prosperous. But you have to start with the security. And like you said, you're a Venezuelan. My take, I don't trust politicians by default, but my take, at least with Bukele, is he's not going down a collectivist route. He is being, in terms of, you know, strong men, he is being the strong man in terms of the way that he's leading the country. But he's not a communist. Even him meeting with Musk, I think, is an example. He's trying to attract innovation. He's trying to attract decent companies. So yeah, it's complicated, but I would say that El Salvador is definitely on an upward trajectory, and that for the most part, he's doing a really good job.
I 100% agree. And I think the key point there is he's not a collectivist, and he's protecting private property, and he is allowing the free market to thrive, which is, in my opinion, the best way for human society to organize itself, because that's how it organizes itself without any kind of coercion, any type of coercive means. It's just people, voluntary transacting with each other. But that has to be allowed. That has to be somewhat, you could say that has to be somewhat protected. That could be evil. That could either be enabled by the state or that could be persecuted by the state. And, history has shown that, free market economies, flourish, and more collectivist economies tend to impoverish their citizens, to put it nicely. Anyways, Kemal, what are your thoughts on this, my friend? We are going to be, and that's what we're going to talk about during the culture, by the way. So everyone stay tuned. There's about 1,780 of you guys watching live between YouTube and X, and another 120 of you guys watching live on Rumble, and another 20 or so watching live on Nostr. So stay tuned, because we are going to be talking about the Adopting Bitcoin conference during the culture segment. But Kemal, what are your thoughts on this, man? I think you're seeing what we're seeing. I don't think you'd be throwing the conference in El Salvador if you didn't feel optimistic about its future.
No, I wouldn't, I guess. I mean, to clarify, I don't live in El Salvador, but I co-organized the Adopting Bitcoin conference ever since the legal tender law basically passed in 2021. We had our first. So I've been following the space and visiting yearly the country, in touch with folks on the ground living in El Salvador for the past couple of years now, almost daily contact with Bitcoiners. They're talking obviously about politics, about the difficult situation with the security and everything. All things that that were also concerns for us as a conference organizer, bringing international attendees to this Central American country that's known to be the murder capital of the world at that time, right? So I think I have a couple of thoughts around Bukele. I agree with James' position that I'm generally very skeptical of anybody who is a politician. And I recommend all my peers to take that position as well, similarly to how Edward Snowden also propagated it in Nashville at the conference in his speech. But having said that, I think it's really remarkable how he has executed since he came into power. I think it was in 2019, and in an absolutely remarkable way. Like, first of all, he, as we all know, made Bitcoin legal tender, which is a smart move that will only pay off in a couple of years, really. It's starting to pay off nicely already, which is good. But the real payoff will be in, I don't know, a decade, two, and then it will just be undeniable how smart this decision was. But it was also very logical decision for El Salvador to do this, or for the president of El Salvador to do this, because they have already gone cold turkey from the money printer since 2000. They are not addicted to the heroin of money printing, and they just had all the adverse effects without the highs. So it made a total sense to jump on it, and they have gotten good returns from this decision, just from the marketing of it and from tourism and things like that. I think another thing that I really admire, and I can't almost believe how he pulled it off, right? I mean, you might say, like, how do you put 70,000 pandillas into a penitentiary without a single collateral damage? Like, it's absolutely insane. The state of exception started after the mentioned 65 people that died on a Saturday afternoon, or they didn't die, they were killed, right? Like James said. And we've been in this situation, like similar situations we've had also in Mexico, where there is like gang violence, and the government with its military tried to fight against like the gang violence. But they had no chance, because every time they were closing in, the gangs just would go out on the streets and start to murder randomly people, and the government would have to recede. And however, in El Salvador, this didn't happen. Like somehow he outmaneuvered these gangs, and he put them all into jail, one after the other. Apparently, like there were multiple gangs. Maybe they just thought, oh, when they saw that he's going after the other gang, well, now we'll have more market share. Like he's not going to come after us. He's only coming after them. Maybe, he made them believe that, so they didn't react. They didn't help each other, and they were all gone. I don't share the criticism of human rights organizations. Like these guys are so dumb, they basically tattooed it on their face that they're criminals. So it's very easy to pick them out and put them away, which he did in a beautiful way. And the results just speak for themselves. Like just recently, there was a survey by Gallup, I think, basically asking about safety when walking outside at night. And so El Salvador now is among the top 10 countries in the world where people feel safe to walk outside, which is an amazing feat in such a brief amount of time, from basically the murder capital of the world, people getting shot on the streets, to, hey, majority of people feel safe here, even walking alone at night, which was a no-go in 2021 even. Like there were no-go areas that we were telling tourists, like, don't go here, don't go there, stay away from these areas. Now that's all history. Like it doesn't exist anymore, according to everything that I hear from my friends on the ground. Like El Salvador has been freed really by Bukele, and security is the prerequisite for many things that build on top, and most importantly also business. And so high security, you have good business going on. You can tell that from all the Gulf countries as well, like Dubai and stuff. And about Elon Musk now retweeting Bukele. I've actually watched many of the United Nations General Assembly addresses of the heads of state. Nayib Bukele's and Javier Milei's stand out. They're intellectually refreshing and obviously have very compelling stories. But I'm a little bit cynic about Elon Musk's behavior. Sure, he likes him, but he's using all of this to create his narrative out there to set the agenda. And sure, now he's picking Nayib Bukele. I hope there's more to it, than just using him to be friends, to show that he's friends with statesmen and frequenting like the higher echelons of power now. I hope there's more coming. Infrastructure investments, maybe set up a Tesla factory in El Salvador, maybe solve San Salvador's traffic problems with your boring company. I don't know. There's lots of things that Elon Musk could do. I hope it's not just photo ops, and he actually gets on the ground and builds stuff there as well, before moving on to the next person to do a photo op with.
Absolutely. I think that's an incredible point, right? Like, obviously, it benefits Elon tremendously. I think he was with the Prime Minister of Italy the other day as well on Twitter. So, Opti's laughing for
hilarious.
Opti's laughing for certain reasons. But Opti, I don't think you've you've ever gone for
Italy yet. So
prime ministers. You've done central bankers. You've achieved, but never prime ministers.
Antion insider enjoyer confirmed.
But
Nico, here, let me pop in and let's get to the culture. I agree with a lot of what Kemal said and James said, and of course what Nico said. I'm going to be quick about this. I just find it very interesting that if you get a leader in position that does take take a stance, does have principles that he's trying to guide his country, how quickly you can turn things around. And as someone that is, fully invested in America, I don't want to leave my home. I just find it hopeful that maybe, hopefully, fingers crossed, we can figure out something similar in the U.S. because it seems like we are being run by a lot of weak geriatrics, and I want a strong leader in place so that we can turn this country around, because I do not want to live in anywhere else. Of course, there's a lot of great places, but I love my home. I want my family to also thrive. And it's just very interesting when you see a strong leader get in power, not only the negative feedback and the whiplash that he gets, but the praise that he gets within his nation. And again, I've said this all the time, like, I don't live in El Salvador, so who am I to talk about what Salvadorians think about the president? I just look at it as a beacon of light and being like, look, he's a Bitcoiner. He's got some principles. He wants to change his country around. And I just find it hopeful that maybe, again, we could do that same thing in the U.S. and it doesn't go completely into a shithole.
Absolutely. All right, everybody, stay tuned because we are going to talk about the Adopting Bitcoin conference that's coming up in November in El Salvador. And of course, if we have time, the BTC farmers market as well. So stay tuned for the culture segment. Here we go. We will be right back. All right, everybody, I want to tell you guys about our sponsor, the Orange Pill app. Stack friends who stack sats. Join the 12,233 Bitcoiners that are currently on the app right now. It's the #1 resource for Bitcoin-only events. If you're on the go, you're traveling to a new city, perhaps you're coming to Adopting Bitcoin, and you're staying in town for an entire week, and you don't know what to do the other days that you're not at this amazing conference, well, the Orange Pill app is for you. It has a really clever geographical feature, and it will allow you to send a message to the Bitcoiners that are near you, and it'll allow you to connect with them and interact with them. It's probably a pretty good idea to build up that Bitcoiner Rolodex. I truly believe that Bitcoiners are going to be some of the most influential and powerful people over the next 5 to 10 years. The Orange Pill app is for you. You won't find any altcoiners on there. They have a very clever filtration system. And also, it's one of the best ways to reach me directly. I don't really answer random emails or Twitter DMs these days. If you want to contact me, download the Orange Pill app, send me a message, and every week or so, I make sure to go through every single one of the messages and get back to you guys. So download the Orange Pill app today, scan the QR code, and check the link in the video/podcast description. Anyways, I'm so excited to have these two gentlemen on the show today. Of course, we have James and Kemal. Of course, they are the organizers of the Adopting Bitcoin conferences, plural. I know you guys started in El Salvador. Apparently, you guys are throwing one in South Africa and the Netherlands as well. But let's focus on the El Salvador one because that's the one coming up. So, Opti, if you don't mind clicking on that one, it is going to be November 15th through the 16th in San Salvador, El Salvador. Simply Bitcoin will be there. We will be having the news desk. I'm really looking forward to it. What special surprises do you have for people this year, Kemal? Why should people go to this conference?
I mean, Adopting Bitcoin is the premier Bitcoin conference of El Salvador, Bitcoin country. And it's the first country that adopted Bitcoin and made it legal tender. And that's a huge deal because Bitcoin is nothing fringe there. It's nothing, criminalized or like uncertain. Like it's become second nature. And, it's attracting lots of people who want to see how it feels to live in a world, in a country where Bitcoin has wider acceptance. And it attracts a lot of builders who want to learn and maybe bring their products to this country and test it on scale and get market feedback on scale in ways that are not possible in jurisdictions that are hostile to it, right? Like there's also a lot of founders coming to set up shop in El Salvador, builders who are, looking to connect, entrepreneurs who are looking for a business partner to set up, like so many CEOs who found their CTO at Adopting Bitcoin, so many projects that emerged. And it's basically established itself as a place where a lot of also new folks in the Bitcoin space that you don't hear, at the usual conferences on stage, can, get known by a wider audience, present their ideas, and I'm sure there will be a couple of really interesting things coming out of this one as well.
So talk about El Salvador, right? Perhaps a lot of people haven't made the pilgrimage yet there. They're not familiar. The conference is going to be thrown in San Salvador, which is the capital. What are the booking arrangements? Like, if I want to get a hotel, if I want to get an Airbnb, are they high quality? Should I fear for my safety? Am I going to be able to pull out my cell phone? You were talking about this earlier. Perhaps that's something that's on a lot of people's minds when they hear, hey, there's a Bitcoin conference going on in El Salvador. What would be your response to that?
I'll let James answer that because he is clearly more experienced with all the accommodations and the situation on the ground.
So I guess just to get it out of the way, if you look on our website, we have partnered with quite a few hotels in the city. There's also a discount code there for the hotels. There's a huge community of Bitcoiners here, and it's only growing. There's multiple meetups all over the country every week. We're doing 3 farmers markets a month now. There's all these hotspots of Bitcoiners coming and, actually engaging in a parallel kind of sats-based economy. And I'm yet to hear of any issues with people getting their phones stolen or any sort of shenanigans like that. So I would say to folks that haven't been here before, it's a great opportunity to come and see what it's actually like living outside of a fiat system. We are still relatively small, but I mean, for example, I haven't had a bank account in 3 years. Up until last week, I had to open up a fiat bank account for one of my businesses. But you can do it here. I'm not saying that it's perfect or easy or seamless, but if that kind of lifestyle intrigues you, I would say you got to come and check it out.
Awesome. Yeah, and I've made the pilgrimage twice already. And I've lived a bit of my life in South and Central America. And what I got to say is what is happening in El Salvador is extremely unique. The people are full of hope. It's extremely safe country. One of the things that happened to me on the first days is, and I don't suggest doing this in Latin America, but one of my shoes broke, and I actually had a dinner with Max, Stacy, and BTC Sessions. There was an event going on, and I had to go get super glue. So I went down to the hotel lobby and I said, "Hey, do you guys have super glue?" And they're like, "No." And I went out like walking in the streets, and I was just like, "Hey, do you where can I find super glue?" And a guy literally took me in his car, and he took me to like a nearby bodega, and I went to the counter and I said, "Hey, can I buy this from you?" And he was like, "It's like $1 or something." And I didn't have any cash on me or anything, so I was like, "Yeah, let me pay you with Bitcoin." He's like, "No, sorry, I don't accept that." And the guy next to me was like, "No, don't worry, I'll pay for you." And some random guy took me to the bodega. Random guy paid for the super glue, and then I walked back to my hotel. Right, like that. You don't do that ever, right? But I felt safe, and I didn't feel that uncomfortable feeling in the back of your mind. And that is, you don't kind of experience that anywhere else. And I've lived in, whether it's Colombia or spent some time in Ecuador, the Dominican Republic. I've spent quite a bit of time. You don't find that level, and of course Venezuela, you don't find that level of safety. You do have that kind of like hair standing up in the back of your neck type of thing, kind of feeling. But I never had that. I never had that when I was in El Salvador, and I really wanted to kind of cherish the moment because I've heard so many positive things like what James was describing, but don't trust, verify. This is what a lot of Bitcoiners believe. So I wanted to experience it myself, and I took it upon myself to just spark up conversations with so many locals, and I just see hope. I see hope in people, and I feel the energy that is there. And, it's not called Freedom Country for no reason. So it's really, really awesome. And I think that this conference coming up is going to be a great opportunity, great excuse for you to go and see some of your favorite Bitcoiners in Freedom Country adopting Bitcoin. Let's pull up the dates again, Opti, if we can, please. November 15th through the 16th in San Salvador. And let's go through some of the speakers as well. So let me just name them for the audio listeners. We have Peter St. Onge, Stacy, Max and Stacy, Pierre Richard, Herman Bonvervier, Tone Vase, Connor Kus, Giacomo, Will Reeves, Maya, the president of Suriname, she's running, Matthew Siegel, Chris Wood, Benjamin DeWall, John Denny, Mike Peterson, Nicholas Bertley, Roman Martinez, Luke Broyles, just to name a few. Efrat's going to be there. Of course, me, Opti, Luke Mitchick's going to be there. Morgan, Richard, Roger 9000, Svetsky's going to be there as well. Beauty On is going to be there. Andrew Loha, the organizer of the Free Madeira conference, which was excellent. Pedro, Brandon Keys of Greenlit Investments. Miss Bitcoin is going to be there. Opti, stay away from her. Mark Moss. Just to name a few. This is a very, very impressive lineup. It's going to be a great time, like I said. And get your tickets now before the prices go up. They go up in 5 days.
Hey Nico, can I pop in here real quick?
Sure.
On the tickets, because people were asking about the tickets, and I was telling Kemal this earlier before we went live, that one of the cool things that I noticed on the website is that you guys only accept Bitcoin. And I know this is a big thing for you, Kemal, when it comes to adopting Bitcoin, of just how it is basically a grassroots conference. It's Bitcoin only. You're completely independent. It is nonprofit. So let's talk about that. For the people out there, just like how beautiful and organic this conference actually is.
Yeah, you want me to jump in here?
You jump in, and maybe for the audio listeners, you can give them the ticket prices and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been accepting only Bitcoin since the very first conference. Actually, in the beginning, we were a little bit crazy and said we're only accepting Lightning, no on-chain. And then people were like, "No, you can't do that, Kemal." But we actually did it for the first, I think, like only 1 month before the conference, we turned on-chain. And still like 600 attendees paid their tickets with Lightning in 21,
Crazy.
Which was great. So we're only accepting Bitcoin payments on-chain and Lightning. Both is fine. Majority is paying with Lightning. We're also not really giving away free tickets. When we want to invite somebody, then we let them pay at least $1 ticket, because we want people to come to the conference to at least have made one Bitcoin transaction in their life and paid for something, right? I think this is like a hoop that people should go through, and it served us well. I mean, the conference has many good filters, like knowing how to use Bitcoin and making a payment is one that qualifies you, but it's not the only one. You also have to, go travel to this conference from wherever you are. It's not the shortest. It's not around the corner. I mean, for US Americans and Mexicans and stuff, it's cool, but from Europe and the rest of the world, it's quite far away. And there's many people coming from Europe, from Asia, even from Australia, to this conference. It's really the place, from all over the world. Many different Bitcoin cultures are getting together here at this conference, and it's really something that we're proud of, and you can tell how this plurality of backgrounds is bringing something creating something very special when people are aligned on Bitcoin. And yeah, about the other things that Opti mentioned, I think it's not talked about a lot with other conferences, but I think, well, I've noticed that it makes a big difference in how the conference constitutes itself and actually how it turns out and how its incentives are stricken. So first of all, it's a Bitcoin-only conference. So we basically filter out all spam that's not Bitcoin when we basically put together the schedule. And other than that, we try to do as little curation as possible, because any curation might, we don't want we're not nobody. We're just, like putting together this conference and making it possible for Bitcoiners to get together and talk about the things that are important, and it should be Bitcoiners who set the agenda. And so we try to do as little curation as possible. Another thing that we don't do is, for example, pay to play, like sponsors. Yes, companies can sponsor the conference, but that doesn't entitle them to get on stage or anything else. They have to submit their talks just like anybody else, and they go through the rigorous review process of our team. And if it merits to be on stage, then they'll be on stage. So there are no panels to be sold, and stuff like that for people to get out there and talk about something that they think should be talked about. No, it's like just Bitcoiners, and anybody can suggest a topic. Unfortunately, our call for participation is closed now since 3 weeks. But we have plenty of great proposals that came in. And we're almost through, so we should soon have a schedule. It shouldn't take too long. I think one more important thing is that we're non-profit. So that also plays into the incentives. We just want to bring Bitcoiners together in Bitcoin country, and highlight and so we can talk about the important topics, get up to speed on the latest developments in various fields, and touch on topics that need to be discussed when we're face to face. And I think being non-profit also is an important makes just everything nicer, if there's nobody taking advantage of you, but it's just a cost to make things happen, to bring Bitcoiners together, that we're charging. Obviously, Salvadorans are only paying $21, because the average income in El Salvador is lower still. I hope that will improve over the next years. Then we'll adjust that number too. But as it stands, it's international attendees and sponsors. So it's attendee finance conference, right? Like, it's so important. You see all those problems with advertisers when they come in, and how it negatively affects journalism. Like, if it also negatively affects where the money is coming from on a Bitcoin conference, and I think it shouldn't. And we try to keeping it grassroots and bottom up and real. And I'll stop here, and maybe James wants to add something, or you have some thoughts and comments.
Give it over to James real quick, because everyone knows you. You've been on the show as the Bitcoin Farmers Market, and a cool thing that you told me earlier is what's going on with the Bitcoin Farmers Market at adopting Bitcoin. So let's talk about that real quick before we wrap up today's show.
Yeah, well, over the 2 days of the conference in the outdoor area, at the venue. It's a big, beautiful venue in the mountains just overlooking San Salvador. But in one of the outdoor areas, we're actually going to have the Bitcoin Farmers Market running the whole time over both days. And I have a huge variety of things, probably 30 to 40 vendors. It depends. It's a voluntary market. But I think it will be really cool for people to be able to go from having a talk and talking about abstract Bitcoin/Lightning concepts, and then being able to walk straight out of the hall and actually watching, Bitcoin being used as cash right there in front of them. That's what we'll be doing with that.
Beautiful. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. This is going to be an amazing event. Kamal, could we drop the sauce? Could we make the announcement?
Sure, let's do it.
All right. Well, Simply Bitcoin will be doing a Simply Bitcoin news desk at the Adopting Bitcoin conference. It's going to be absolutely awesome. We're going to be bringing our entire production crew, and hopefully we're going to be getting these gentlemen in to do some interviews and awesome other Bitcoiners as well. And really, really looking forward to it. So guys, get your tickets. Go to adoptingbitcoin.org. Again, adoptingbitcoin.org. The conference is happening November 15th through the 16th in El Salvador. The lineup is absolutely bonkers. You could find a link in the video / podcast description. Anyways, guys, this was Simply Bitcoin Live for September 26, 2024. I'm your host, Nico. This is my co-host, Optimus Fields. Our guests for today, Kemal and James from Adopting Bitcoin, and of course, James from the BTC Farmers Market. We'll see you guys in El Salvador, and we'll be back tomorrow for another episode of Simply Bitcoin Live. Stay tuned for an episode of Simply Bitcoin Originals dropping later today from Ruston. Take care, everybody.
Brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.